This episode is brought to you by Startup Edition, a gathering of accomplished founders, hackers, and designers sharing their knowledge and experience building a startup. Visit startupedition.com and subscribe for weekly wisdom.
We all have big ideas, but very few of us ever put in the effort to make them become a reality. This is a video series where I interview inspirational people who are trying to do just that. This is Reality Makers.
Welcome to episode 4 of Reality Makers. I'm Corey Gwen. I'm here with Adii Pienaar, who is just doing a lot of things. He's a seasoned author. He's written several books on entrepreneurship. He's a co-founder and CEO of WooThemes, a very successful web company. And he just recently launched PublicBeta, which is doing a lot of interesting, exciting things for entrepreneurs. Welcome, Adii.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And where you at tonight? Or today, it's morning where you're at, right?
Yeah, it's just about 7 a.m. here in Cape Town, South Africa.
Awesome. And it's like 10 o'clock here in San Diego.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are today. Like, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm working on my new startup called PublicBeta, which is basically an online learning community for entrepreneurs. And I've been doing that since officially or full-time since the beginning of June, when I stepped down or after stepping down as CEO of WooThemes. So WooThemes is a company I co-founded or initially founded and brought on co-founders back in 2007. Almost 6 years now. So
wow.
Yeah, it just got to the point earlier this year where the company was doing so well, and there's management in place. There's 33 people on the team, and it just felt the time was right to pursue something new, to pursue something that I was really passionate about. And PublicBeta is that thing at the moment.
Awesome. So what kind of got you into entrepreneurship to get from the get-go? Like why is that something that you decided to get into?
Yeah.
Was it just a decision you made, or was it life that just kind of forced you there?
I think a bit of both. So I've always been intrigued by entrepreneurship. I can remember, back in high school, I would always think how I could actually make money. And I can't remember what the exact motivation was at the time, but I can remember kind of, trying these harebrained, schemes to make some money as a kid. And I can remember reading Richard Branson's books. I read, I think, 3 or 4 of his biographies and autobiographies at the time, and I was really inspired. And then I think there was this kind of, when I went to university, I studied accounting at university out of interest stakes, and I think there was almost a fear of working for a boss. And that fear drove that kind of notion that I needed to do something on my own. And the reason you asked whether it was just kind of, coincidence or situation that forced me into it, and it was somewhat. So what happened was I had to figure out a way to finance my final year at university. And to do that, I started doing WordPress consulting. And that's what ultimately led me to to create and build the first product that eventually became WooThemes. And even though I took a corporate job for 2 months thereafter, because I previously committed to it, having had built that product and having done well consulting, it just made that move easier. But as I said, I think it was always just some kind of intrigue about entrepreneurship, and then definitely as I got close to the point where I have to pay my own bills and I have to get a job, that fear of taking a job was I think a massive driving force and my own thing.
And you worked at like a corporate company for a short time, and were kind of like, I don't want to do this.
So what happened was my final year of varsity, I actually presented a little course at a local business school as part of an MBA. They got me in, and I spoke about social media. Don't ask me about it, but I spoke about social media, and I actually met a MD from a massive corporate there, and he took a liking to me, and he actually offered me a job. And that was September of the year, and I was going to finish my studies in November. So I actually committed to joining them in Jan. But then I released the first product in November of that year. So by the time I joined them in Jan, I was already making the same amount of money from the product than I was, with what they were paying me. So I lasted 6 weeks in the job. I almost gave them, WooThemes, by the way. I almost brought it in-house, which would have been a mistake. But that's a little longer story. But yeah, I lasted 6 weeks, and then I actually quit, and I finished up 2 weeks later.
Do you think that experience at that job kind of gave you some confidence because you saw what people were doing, maybe? Like you kind of knew what they were doing in that space? Or you just...
No, and I'll tell you why, because and that's part of why it actually didn't work out. Was I was brought on to kind of it was an older company and started out being a printing company, and they had started doing what they would term new media, which wasn't new media as we would know it today, but they wanted kind of young blood to infuse this new kind of thinking in the company, and that's what happened. I eventually almost gave them WooThemes as being this kind of new technology that they could to take to their clients, and this is a massively successful company, right? But yeah, they had. They were ISO certified, which meant that they had specific steps you had to follow for quoting a customer and like setting up meetings. Everything had to be standardized because it was such a big organization. So I didn't learn much except for the fact that I would never be able to work for a corporate.
Yeah, that was a little too much on the rails for you.
Yeah.
So obviously, WooThemes. Maybe you should tell us a little bit, real briefly, what WooThemes is and what it became, I guess.
Gotcha. So the first product, was back in the day was called Original Premium News, and the idea at that stage was I was doing cool stuff on WordPress for clients, but it never translated, or it wasn't available to like the public in general, right? And there were free themes available for WordPress, and we're talking about 2006, 2007 now. So WordPress was just about taking off. It was seen as, I think the foremost, blogging platform, but it started kind of, people started trying to use it as a CMS. And the initial kind of versions thereof was these kind of more elaborate news type sites. So I figured, I want to build this thing and see whether I can actually sell it. So I literally threw everything in the kitchen sink into it. And I'm very much a hacker in terms of my coding ability, and a hacker in a bad sense. Like I can throw a bunch of shit together and hope it actually works.
I know how it is. I call that duct tape and glue. However you can make it work. Yeah.
Exactly. So, so I built this first product, and it just kind of took off. And, from that first product, I met my co-founders, and, we started loosely collaborating. And then we actually, we formalized it and we rebranded it as WooThemes in 2008. And then what happened, I think in the first year or two, the space was still relatively empty, and we could just continue building these what we call premium themes. So i.e. things that were, had a little bit more features but were better supported than the free versions available. And we kind of built a very successful business. On top of that, it took us 13 months to reach $1 million US in revenue, for example. So we were doing really well. And then that was kind of, so that's our legacy, and the core of our business was themes, hence the name WooThemes. In the last 2 odd years, though, we've shifted. I wouldn't say shifted away, but mostly shifted our attention to functionality, and specifically e-commerce. We released WooCommerce, our e-commerce product, on top of WordPress about 2 years ago now, and that is about 70% of our business today. So it's been a significant change in how we've gone more kind of a full stack in terms of the types of things that our customers are building on WordPress. And today I would like to believe that we're mostly targeted at kind of small and medium enterprises in terms of, they come to us to buy more like the full stack of things. Like they buy our products to build out a fully fledged website, not just, buying a theme for, to make their blog, look nice.
Got it. Very cool. So the interesting part of this, right, is that WordPress is I would think a pretty competitive market space, right? Back in the day, even early on. A lot of people were building components. I know a lot of people even learned how to program just building WordPress widgets. So what do you think allowed you guys to come out ahead in this market?
So I do think we had somewhat of a first mover advantage, and I think a critical part was my own reputation back in the day. So in 2006, I actually rebranded. So people that don't know me well, my full name is Adii Pienaar. which is Afrikaans, almost like Dutch, right? And it's difficult to pronounce. It's like impossible to announce for English-speaking people. So I rebranded myself as initially was Adii WordPress Rockstar, and then I just changed it to Adii Rockstar. And what happened at the time, I think it was a little easier getting traction on a personal blog, and I had a really great personal blog where I was releasing free stuff, free WordPress stuff. As I said, I was doing WordPress consulting, and I was just writing. I mean, I was a really bad writer in the day as well. What happened was, due to the audience I'd built up there, when I released that very first product, I actually had revenue on day one. And that, as I said, I think that coupled with the first mover advantage, I mean, along with myself, Brian Gardner from Studio Press, he released his first premium stuff at about the same time. So we had that kind of first mover advantage. And I do think we had some additional traction as a result. I do think, in the years, after that, the WordPress space has become, significantly more congested and competitive. Back then it was really the wild, wild west though.
Yeah. And you guys definitely capitalized on that.
Yeah.
Has WordPress, I know like the WordPress group itself has they've built a lot of backend for like blogging itself. Has that really caused you guys any, significant trouble for your business at all? I wouldn't think so, I guess, because you have more product-based things.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, as WordPress progresses, that's the nice thing here. I mean, we basically experience growth for two reasons. Growth because WooThemes grows and our products, kind of reach grows. But secondly, and kind of almost our growth is based on, on this growth, and that's the general growth of WordPress. I mean, latest stats, Google indexes, show something like 20%. Of pages is powered by WordPress, which is just a significant marketplace. So as WordPress kind of grew, the platform grew, it was easy for us to just capitalize on that by having a great brand and building great products.
Awesome. So you started going into actually what I want to talk to you next about writing as a way to grow an audience, and how that was a way for you to launch a product. And I'm learning, I mean, a lot of people do this. A lot of successful entrepreneurs kind of grow this audience prior to actually launching any products. How did you, I mean, obviously this was a result of your experience with WordPress. And you ended up writing a book called Branding. So I was going to ask you a little bit about the importance of this, and if you had any tips on how to get started just growing an audience.
Yeah, so I think from my side, I think the most important thing is, so I totally believe in the kind of done is better than perfect, mentality. But I do think you can be perfect at one thing, and that's being perfect at being yourself. And that sounds really kind of airy-fairy, but my point there is, I think we see so many individuals, and this translates to the kind of startups or projects they work on online. It's just so fucking generic, and people aren't willing to just kind of stick to their guns. And I think that's the most important thing with writing as well. It's not about being perfect. It's not even about being a good writer. I think you can learn to kind of refine your voice and refine the way you use words to communicate your thoughts. But the most important thing is just being the absolute truest representation of who you already are. I mean, I can't change who I am. So for me, the trick is just to communicate that. And then I totally believe, and I've actually not read the book, but I've, watched the TED Talk, countless times from Simon Sinek about, and the book is called Start With Why or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, and but in the TED Talk, he says, and this stands out, and I can repeat this in so many contexts, so many times. He says, do business with people that believe what you believe. And I think the way you do that is by being yourself. I mean, I'm a firm believer in, like, for me, I'm more than happy at this stage to find that 1,000 people that just kind of respect and love me for who I am. I might not may not always be right, or my opinion might not always be the best, but I have a certain way of thinking, and if you find value in that, then we should connect, kind of thing. If you don't find value in that, then there's thousands of other people that I can connect with, and there's thousands of other people you should connect with. But yeah, I mean, that I think that's my biggest tip is, just try being perfect, being perfect at being yourself.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about like personal branding, and it kind of has a negative connotation. It can, because people kind of think of it as, oh, you're trying to be somebody. But this is such an awesome way to think about it. Be yourself. And that's what you need to be, because that's what's unique and that's what's interesting.
Exactly. And I mean, it's a case of like everyone knows you need to stand out from the crowd. And I mean, every single space, in our daily lives are becoming more congested. I mean, people aren't going into corporate jobs anymore. They are trying to do things themselves. They're trying to build up personal reputations and stuff. So, I mean, again, for me, it's just doubling down on what you already have that's unique, and that is just who you are.
Yeah. So your recommendation would be learn how to write and write well, and just get a blog, get a WooThemes theme, and just start writing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't even think it's a case of, there's so much things you can do to kind of optimize that. I don't think it's obviously important, but writing and broadcasting yourself, shouldn't be like about that, at least initially. Initially, it's just about doing that, and starting to kind of have your say, and just find those first 5 or 10 people that that likes what you're saying and writing about.
Very cool. So you've written 2 books now, which I find pretty amazing. And I read one of your blog posts, and you said you just did it. Like, you just kind of locked yourself away. And I like how you said how the last 20% was like really hard.
Yeah, so the thing I can tell you, the first book, Rockstar Business, published in, I think it was 2009 or early 2010, and it was excruciating. I absolutely hated every fucking minute of it. It took me, I think, about 1.5 years
to complete.
So
what inspired you to do this, though? Like, why did you want to do it in the first place?
To be seen as an expert. I think if you can publish a book about anything, then people immediately kind of respect you more. And it's a weird kind of thing, because you're basically just capitalizing on other people's perceptions and manipulating that, those perceptions, not in a bad way or kind of a deceiving way. It is just that people see you publish a book and they're like, oh, well, this guy must know his shit, which isn't entirely true. I mean, I know some shit. I don't know everything. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to
is like the not necessarily, you need to be able to, you have to know something to be able to write a book, right? But also having the fortitude to be able to spend the time doing it is impressive in and of itself, right?
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, the kind of old cliche of real artists, ship, and I think that's what it's down to. I might ship a really average book, but just by the very nature of shipping that book, I am seen as a real artist.
Very cool, very cool. And so, what is that? Is that something like so basically, you really think all of us could probably do that? What was the effort that it took? Like, really, you said you hated it, but like, did you not sleep, or like?
No, I just procrastinated, and it became really hard at times. And I think I tried to. It was almost like the bar I'd set for myself was really high, and I had to jump really high to get over it. Whereas with branding, I literally wrote it in a little more than 30 days. And the book is just over 30,000 words, if I remember correctly. So I literally just sat myself down and I tried to do on average 1,000 words a day. That was it.
Cool.
And it was just easy. I sat down, I planned the book once. I had a basic outline of what I wanted to write, and then I just wrote it. And I tried to find little small things that I didn't want to do that I wasn't good at. So I paid. I outsourced copy editing, for example, to a lady in Indonesia, and she helped me with that, and she helped me spot the gaps, because then I didn't have to do that, because I knew beforehand that those are the things that I didn't like, and which meant that if I had to do them, I would just lose momentum as a result. So yeah, so second time was an absolute charm compared to the first.
Cool. And would you say it has been worth it? I don't know if it's easy to measure success of doing that, but just in your own mind, has it been worth that effort?
So I mean, I can share at this stage. I'm in the black, so which means in terms of actual dollars, I've actually made more than I spent in the book. I mean, I think it's been totally worth it. I mean, I did loads of guest posts around it. I recently had a guest post on the Next Web about personal branding, which kind of, it helps a lot in kind of, I would almost say reputational awareness, more than say brand awareness, but just kind of, getting your name out there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's totally worth it. And I think having a book, and at least the revenue is directly attached to it, has that kind of long tail effect. I mean, that book is there now. It's it has no time frame. It's not going to expire in 6 months' time. I mean, in a year or two's time, it should still be valuable to someone that's buying it, right?
Right. Very cool. Okay. So you wrote some books and you founded WooThemes, and now you're going on to do PublicBeta, which is just crazy, a whole nother endeavor. So what is inspiring PublicBeta? What was the idea behind this new business?
Yeah, so pure passion. That's a simple answer. Earlier this year, I kind of, WooThemes got to the point where I felt that I had become mostly redundant in the business, which was a good thing, which meant that the time that I'd spent in the previous 9 odd months with the management team was to kind of get them up to speed so that they can actually run the business. I still pride myself in that kind of achievement and making myself redundant. It was something I probably should have done much earlier. But I got to that point and I realized that I was always more of a creator, I wanted to work on something new. I'm not that good a nurturer or a grower per se. And in that regard, I was kind of bored, with what we were doing with WooThemes. Not because it was a shitty company, not because we were doing boring things. It was just because I wanted to create something from scratch again. So initially, I looked at a couple of ideas that were almost, peripheral or complementary to what we were doing with WooThemes. And I got into it and was quite a technical idea. I had investors lined up and all my kind of technical due diligence and figured this out because I'm not a technical co-founder here. And then I realized that my heart wasn't in it. After 2 months of doing behind the scenes kind of legwork on the idea, I just cut it completely. And I sat back and I just kind of gave myself some space to figure out what to do next. And then in that week thereafter, I had a clarity call where someone at the time I had done about 20 clarity calls with other entrepreneurs that would request calls with me. And what I realized after that clarity call was every single time I spoke to another entrepreneur and where I felt that I I could provide some value to them, that made my day. I felt completely refreshed, reinvigorated, and I wanted kind of more of it. It was almost like a drug. And that helped me kind of figure out that my core passion was helping other entrepreneurs. That kind of passion for helping other entrepreneurs kind of led me into other ideas and, eventually led me to the idea to create PublicBeta.
Cool. Very cool. So what are your plans with PublicBeta? So basically it's this resource for entrepreneurs, basically. You just want to be able to share in knowledge and as a resource with one another.
Yeah, so part of it is, and this will become more evident in the next couple of weeks as we roll things out. We're very much in MVP mode, so what you see on the site today isn't the truest reflection of what we're working on. But last year, October, so almost a year ago now, I had a frightening experience, or at least a scary experience for me, in realizing and admitting that I actually had a mild case of depression that was directly linked to my experiences as an entrepreneur and being on this roller coaster.
Wow.
And probably one of the best things I'd done a couple of months before was I joined an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a worldwide organization with, I think, about 9,000 members. We have a local chapter in Cape Town that we have about 60 members. And what we literally do is we're split into groups or forums. And at the time we were 7 in our forum, and we would literally just meet on a monthly basis. The interesting thing about EO is to qualify for membership, you had to be a founder or majority shareholder of a business that did more than $1 million US in revenue annually. So it was kind of exclusive in that regard, but it served as kind of bringing like-minded people together. And one of my kind of the best coping mechanisms I had was being able on a monthly basis to go to this meeting and just talk through my issues, both in terms of my business life, my personal life, just as me, and also my kind of family and friends kind of spheres in my life. We're not allowed to kind of share advice or give advice within EO. We're just allowed to kind of share experience and short stories. But having other entrepreneurs share those, stories just kind of validates that I'm not going crazy, and that yes, when I do feel slightly depressed, that's actually normal. Other entrepreneurs feel that as well.
That's a good point. I guess the journey of an entrepreneur is fairly alone. You're the only one. You're leading away on your own. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think especially when you have kind of tech and online businesses, we tend to do have that even more so. We tend to spend loads of time in front of computers, and we don't kind of connect to life in a very real way. So part of what I wanted to do with PublicBeta was create a digital version of that experience where we could get like-minded entrepreneurs together to help and support each other. We might all be building our own businesses, but so many of the challenges we share are challenges that are generic across the board, and some of it is kind of tactical and skills, but such a small part I think is that. I think if you're struggling to find customers for your business, the biggest challenge there is for you to keep pushing, and the emotional stuff, and not kind of giving up, because you can try 10 different methods and processes and techniques of doing that, and there's value in teaching those things and learning those techniques and stuff. But the biggest challenge is just getting that support and acknowledgement and encouragement to actually to keep going. So I think that's part of the vision that I want to bring to PublicBeta, as I said, to having that almost kind of the word that I love. And I'm pissed off because I can't purchase the domain. I've been trying for months, but the domain I would love to get for this, before I decided on PublicBeta, was Entrepreneurs Anonymous. So very much like AA, but that kind of thing. Like, we're all imperfect, we've all got our issues and our shit, but we're trying to make a difference. And the way that almost contradicts each other, and the way that influence our kind of psyche, something that fascinates me.
No, yeah, Man, that gets me excited. I want a resource like that. I think also, too, entrepreneurs are competitive with one another, which is unfortunate, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs push each other away because they want to be better than the next guy, or they don't want to share their mind or whatever. So
exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And in that, for me, that's where I get back to doing business, with people that believe what I believe. For me, it's totally going to be down. PublicBeta is going to be down to, finding that 1,000 customers, community members that really kind of share a passion, the same kind of passion for entrepreneurship, and people that have the same kind of issues, which means that we're all on par. Whether I have a business that's worth $1 billion and you have a business that's that's doing $5,000 in revenue, that doesn't matter, because at very core, we're entrepreneurs with shit. That's what it's about.
Awesome. Wow, I'm excited. I'm excited for you, Adii.
Awesome.
So, what are there any characteristics that you think you attain that have allowed you to wrap your head around life in a way that allows you to kind of create things, to stay inspired? And you talked about how it's sometimes you face difficult times. What is inside of you that kind of keeps you going, and that you think makes you successful as an individual?
Yeah, so I think passion is a big thing. Passion for whatever, whether it's a kind of short-term thing in terms of I'm passionate about the next 3 items on my to-do list, or kind of bigger vision passion, which for me at this stage is kind of helping other entrepreneurs. So I think a lot starts with that passion, and many times when I so some mornings, for example, I struggle to wake up, and I'm in my car and on the way to the office, I'm like, oh, fuck, it's so early, and but when I'm reminded by the passion, it kind of changes that. So I think passion is kind of a critical part. And then another thing that I've kind of, I would almost say, kind of codified over the last year, because this wasn't kind of consciously obvious to me in the previous journey, but and it's something that I love today. But it's this notion that you get ahead by making mistakes. So one of my biggest fears in life, just generally, is that I will wake up one morning and I will realize that I have stopped learning. That scares the shit out of me. I really want to make sure that whatever I do today, I want to learn something new, whether it's tiny or something that's kind of groundbreaking, like paradigm shifting stuff. I just want to learn. And what I found with myself was the best way I learn is by making mistakes. Hence why I'm absolutely fascinated by the notion that every day what I want to do is I just want to make new mistakes. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to transition out of WooThemes and start something new, is I wanted to have the opportunity to use all the knowledge that I had built up, an experience that I built up over the years with WooThemes, and apply that to a blank canvas. So, purely create a situation for myself where I can make new mistakes again. And I think the reason why that's critical, not just for me, is most things that we can do as entrepreneurs, there is no right or wrong. There's absolutely no way that I can tell you, like, Corey, if you're doing this and that with your startup, you will be successful. I think that's, partly bullshit, because you just won't know, what will work until you actually do it. And I think that the willingness to accept mistakes, the willingness to accept failure and do it in such a way where the only way to beat that is by, learning from it. And trying to iterate in that learning, I think that's key. I think that's the only way that you as an entrepreneur can get ahead, and the only way that startups can get ahead of other startups competing for for the same kind of consumer spend.
Awesome, that's great advice. And I always like to ask people. We're almost running out of time already. I can't believe it. What is it that somebody needs to do to kind of make their idea a reality? I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas. And I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what skills do you need? Or do you need any skills? Is it just a mindset to really be the person that could be somebody like yourself, really just taking life by the reins?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, every entrepreneur has different skills. I mean, and you can go into technical, non-technical skills, whether you're a good leader, manager, whether you're not. That I think that's really peripheral to the real thing. And the real thing comes back to that real artistship, and done is better than perfect, and which means just get things done. I think if you have that kind of mindset that's, come hell or high water, you are passionate about this idea and this vision, and you're going to kind of execute on that. It just becomes a case of doing and never kind of accepting no as the answer. No is never the default state kind of situation, or shouldn't be. Like, you should always challenge that. And I think if you do that, you'll figure out ways to complement the skills you don't have, or figure out ways to learn the skills you don't have, or figure out ways to find the customers, or figure out where you can find a co-founder that's willing to take the same risks that you are. That's the thing. Like, you just have to have that, just do it kind of, attitude to life and, to your professional pursuits.
Awesome advice. Well, Adii, we're out of time already. I can't believe it.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I appreciate you taking the time and chatting with us. And I really hope that other people enjoy learning from PublicBeta. I'm excited to see this hit the world.
Awesome stuff.
Awesome, man.
Awesome stuff. And yeah, I mean, these conversations are always fascinating. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully we'll do it again. And if you ever make it out to California, be sure to stop by here in San Diego and visit.
We'll do it. It is on the list, by the way.
Awesome. All right, man. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks,
right.
Corey.
Bye-bye.
Are you a reality maker, know somebody that is, or want to sponsor this show? Visit my website, corygwen.com, to learn more.